just sung reverberate in my soul and in this collective soul of ours. I want to say today's Torah, Devar Torah, is dedicated to what we just sang. Torah is a tree of life for those who grasp onto her, and all who hold on to her are blessed. Its ways are pleasant, and its paths are of peace. And so I take that deeply to heart. I dedicate these shtickle words to that very intent. And I'm going to give you the punchline. Oh, I don't like punchline. No more punching. I'll give you the essence, the ikar of what I want to talk about today. Last week and this week creates a bookend for me to share something about Abraham and Sarah. And last week what we talked about is how one of the things that made Abraham so amazing was the art of the question. His willingness to create questions that have never been asked before. And that he becomes a model for us to ask new questions. Difficult times need new questions. Because if we keep asking the same questions and dipping into the same territory, how are we going to expand what is necessary to grow right now? Because if we don't grow, That was last week. This week, what I want to talk about is what he really brought into this world. He brought in ethical monotheism. He brought in this sense of saying, for the righteous ones, will you save? And remember, the word for that is the tzaddikim. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. I just want to give us the territory of where we're going. Because his ethical monotheism grew out of the art of the question. Abraham, Avraham, he was beneficent. He was moral. He was universal. He could perceive the who, not the what. And this parsha in particular that we just read from Vayera, it really is asking us, what are we seeing? I love what it says here in the beginning. I hope you all, I don't know if you, well, we didn't look at the 18:1, but it says that what this parsha is about really is, produces the thing Vayera. The Lord appeared was seen. One incident after another involves people seeing or not seeing God. It reminds me of Buckminster Fuller, who said, if you don't feel close to God, who moved away? We have the capacity to perceive, but perception is tricky. There's enough psychologists here or people who've studied psychology where you know that perception is selective, stable, and meaningful. Much comes into our nervous systems at any given moment, and we choose what we're going to attend to. We create and make little boxes of perception, and we see the world through that. The antidote to rigid perceptions, selected perceptions, are asking new questions. So we will come back to that. So we have now, this parsha, by the way, it has the word seeing in some form. I counted 13 times, it could be more. It has the word for eyes 10 times. When you have this kind of repetition, it's a real clue. Look at and study your perception. How are you framing the world? I don't have a control over a lot. I swear I think I could do a good job if I did. Yet I do have control of how I perceive, how things happen from that point of view. So how do we discern? What do we have to discern these days? Righteous from wicked, right? And how do we do that? How do we sense the presence of a God that seems to be absent as horrible things unfold? How do we know what a tzaddik is? And then how do we align with that? I want to tell you something that I saw the last time I was in this room, which would have been Thursday. I don't know if anybody, right, we saw, right, both of us are already going to start crying. We saw 60-some children singing First of all, I love coming to services and coming up here and hanging out in services together, a kahal, a real congregation. And then we sang Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. And they're singing with all of their hearts. And all of a sudden it's like spontaneous getting up and dancing. And you see all these beautiful children in this room dancing and singing and having a sense of connection and having a sense of, I belong here, and having a sense that, we're coaching them. Peace is, something inside your heart that you radiate out. And it was so beautiful. And actually, Maura and Diana took some pictures, so maybe we'll show that sometime, because it was very...
I actually took video.
Yeah, you did. You took video, something to show. I saw that with my own eyes. That is what is giving me hope today. How do we take our texts, our tradition, our capacity to be connected together and teach them and protect them and support them? I promise you, I am asking this question every day of my life right now. This is what is moving me forward. This is what is having me cling to Torah and cling to hope. So I want to remember something about Abraham, who I've nicknamed the great father who merits the hay. It says, Va'avraham haya Adonai L'goy gadol, since Abraham is to become a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to bless themselves by him. It then reminds me, I know him. God says, I know him. I have intimate knowing of him, and because of this, I've kind of singled him out so that he may instruct his children and all those who come after him to keep the way of God by doing what is just and right, mishpat and tzedek, in order to bring about what has been promised to him. I want to remind us that Abraham is the father of many people. He's not just the father of the Jewish people. He's the father of Esau. He's the father of Ishmael. He is the father of many. We have many people that connect into this root, and we have to really understand that as we start to sort through these issues, even when it's an uncomfortable truth. Look, Genesis is a crazy book. My nickname for it is the book of dysfunctional human relationships. It teaches us the foibles of human experience. It presents these patterns of human interaction, starting with the very first siblings, Abel and Cain. How do we get along? How did they get along? Not so good. Noah, his nakedness, his 3 sons, a very distinct character. Lot, his lust, his greed, his behavior towards his daughter's behavior towards them. It's not such a great story. It's to me one of the ugliest stories there is in Torah. How Lot treats his daughters and how he treats them is reflected back in how they have no respect for him. Sarah and Hagar. This is not a beautiful story either. Ishmael and Isaac. More issues. Abraham and how he almost sacrificed his son. His ideal was so high that he almost forgot the very son that he loved in front of him. How do you measure ideals with the person that's actually sitting right in front of you? How do you recognize the face of the other? So really what I want to talk about, ethical monotheism, ethics, the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles, these principles that govern a person's behavior, morality principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, good and bad behavior. I don't believe in moral relativism. I believe in a morality based on the principles embedded in the Torah. I believe the Torah. I trust the Torah. I wrestle with the Torah. I'm angry with the Torah. I'm delighted by the Torah. I'm inspired by the Torah. I'm frustrated. All of those things are part of my relationship. But in the end, I trust the guidelines. Here's what I teach to the kids, okay? The Torah is a guidebook for life. All the problems are there. All the way humans can grow and hurt each other on there. Every problem, every solution. The problems are on the surface, and the solutions that are there, but you have to dig. This process helps us be better people. And it's about learning to guide things toward love. That's what they're learning. So that's what we're learning, because if it's good enough for the children, it's certainly good enough for us. If it's good enough for us, it's good enough for the children. And so I'm very much looking at morality today. Not a moral relativity, but a morality that guides us towards love. I look at Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. He says, being human, we are bound by a covenant of human solidarity, whatever our color or culture, class or creed. What makes morality so fundamental to our humanity, he goes on, is that it turns us outward. Plato, Adam Smith, Viktor Frankl, many, have said, pursuit of the right of good is not about self, but about the process of unselfing, of seeing the world for what it is, for not what we feel or fear it to be, and responding appropriately. Morality is precisely unself-help. It is about strengthening our relationship with others, responding to their needs, listening to them, not insisting that they listen to us, about being open to others. It's about strengthening bonds between us. Oh boy. Oh boy. Not every other right now delights me. What do I do now? How do I get to this place where I track the face of the other even when the other very much disappoints me? What do I do in a time when moral codes seem to disappear in front of us? What do I do when anti-Semitism is being, with alacrity, increasing? It's like, what? That was fast. Now what do we do? So let me backtrack for just 1 second. The role of the sources in Torah are to teach us, to help us find a new perception of reality, one that acknowledges all connections. They teach us to scrutinize our desires, our character development, our impulses, and our motivations, continuing to look at the connections between us, so that we are with Abraham in the ability to hold hospitality to humanity, and to bring the sense of one God who connects all forward. This is a comment. I'm taking a Musar class right now with Rabbi Ira Stone, who is, I cannot believe how honored I am to be studying with this man. He teaches you grow in ego by being loved. You grow in ego by being loved, by allowing yourself to receive love. You grow in soul by loving others. Giving and receiving. So here's what we have to get to. Human becoming is not limited to Jews. Many are blessed by Abraham and Sarah's discoveries. And Sarah's very, very important here. Don't ever think there's not. Sarah is a little bit white fire, but there's so much about Sarah. I'd love to have a class just to talk about her. So we have to really look at our triumphalism. I was recently sitting with somebody on the left who's like screaming about the Jews. It was very painful. And recently I was sitting with somebody on the right who was screaming about Ishmael as if we're at war with Ishmael. And now I'm here in the middle saying, you are my brother, you are my sister. How do I find God in both your faces? What questions do I need to ask to move it forward? First thing, I have to make a distinction between Ishmael and Amalek. Amalek, boo forever. Ishmael, the face of my brother's perception perhaps has been clouded. The face of the one who screams at Israel without pause is the face of my brother. What questions do I ask to pull us to become closer? This is very important. This is very important in this time. Because what I really want to say more than anything else is that becoming human, really human, is about the ability to see the face of the other. And to find a way to do that, to clear our perception, to be able to open up and to always hope and to always love. And even as as things come in and crush us down, never to lose that part of our own humanity, no matter how hard it is. You know, let's see. We have an obligation to serve the other. It's implicit in our being, it's our constitution. Heschel says every human being has at least a vague notion that something is expected of him or her. This is what characterizes our humanness of being. The battle for Musar, for our character development, is at the heart of who we are, an extension of Abraham's concept of ethical monotheism. All people, all souls, all sentience. How do I see this in responsibility to the children? It's a commitment to their soul journey of instituting and instilling a moral code and trying with everything to protect them. And every one of my teachers is committed to this sense of reflecting their soul to them. They were chosen very carefully for this very reason. And that's what we get. That's why we get to exalt and celebrate them. So, kind of coming in for the landing, how does war and persecution affect us? The horrendous behavior of others is precisely a result of their failure to think clearly about the world they are inhabiting. Making a distinction that it is not the person, the soul that is at fault, but it is the way of thinking. And we dive into Torah to get those thoughts, to ask the questions, to try and bring us more towards each other. Remember, the purpose of studying is not to agree with each other, it's to learn from each other. We have an obligation to the other. And we start not by somebody sitting 1,000 miles away. We start by the people right here in front of us. We start by the people in front of us, our family, our community. I want to start with Boulder Valley School District and talking to them. I want to start with CU, talking to them. I want to start with City Council, talking to them. I want to keep it local. I want to hear where things are. I want to talk about my heartache and my hurt. I want to hear how you're hurting. What don't you understand? I want to break it down to real relationship, real face, real connection. So the last thing that I want to say is, here's a quote. At the same time, fighting evil doesn't mean a suspension of moral ground rules. The opposite is true. One must be careful not to become tainted by the evil you are fighting for both practical and spiritual reasons. This is what I'm clinging on to right now. What I have control over in my heart and my perception and my relationships and my questions. So the very last thing I want to say today, and thank you so much for giving me this time, is we need to make room for Rabbi Mark's return. Rabbi Mark is going to be coming home a different man than when he left. He has been changed by what he has seen, and it is ours to listen and to support and to, God willing, become a container or a vessel for the change we want to see in the world. The best way we can support him is by listening and dealing with our heartache and coming to each other in our own vulnerability and sharing what's going on. Because it's only together that we're going to be able to face these times. It is only as a strong adult community that we are going to have the ability to nourish our precious, adorable, gorgeous little shkushkis that we are tending and loving and teaching and supporting. Are we all the same here? Do you think every single person in this room agrees on Israel, agrees on almost anything, agrees on whether or not lunch is good, you know? I mean, that's not who we are. But we remember that we're connecting and we listen to each other and we try for that to come together. And we want to wash our perception so that we can perceive as cleanly and clearly as possible. So may your sight and vision be aligned with the one through the lens of love. Shabbat shalom.